issues and critical economic engagement top agenda as President Muhammadu Buhari arrives New York for the 74th session of UNGA. Cashless policy. Only 5% of bank customers will be affected, says CBN. And Nigeria to begin export of fertilizer, just as the Securities and Exchange Commission SEC say it is developing a commodities trading ecosystem. The program is Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital, on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. I am Amina Noujaim. Welcome to the program. The Accountants Conference of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria has recommended to the federal government education, prevention and sensitization in its anti-corruption drive towards positioning the economy to grow in a sustainable manner.
Are told, and even adults are told, that when you are driving on a bad road anywhere in your country, there is an element of corruption. There is an element of diversion or misuse of funds. When you visit a hospital and you cannot find oxygen or you are asked to pay for it, it is indicative that those who have been given the honor and privilege of serving in that particular ministry are not utilizing the funds as they should be utilized.
The U.S. Trade and Development Agency is offering $1.06 million, that is about 360 million naira grant to provide 1,370 solar-powered mini-grid system to communities in Abuja.
Grant will facilitate some feasibility studies so that we can package these areas, rural areas, mostly into bankable, projects to accelerate electrification by rolling out isolated grids that are supplying power.
So Nigeria is a natural fit. It's actually our largest portfolio in sub-Saharan Africa for very good reason, because of the strength of our partnerships and the demand of U.S. industry.
As the directive on the cashless policy by the Central Bank of Nigeria takes effect, divergent views have trailed the implementation among Nigerians. Governor of the bank, Godwin Emefiele, has this to say in response.
Over 5 years, from 2014 to 2019, all the cash that would have been kept in people's pillow, under their mattresses, by 5 years, we should have been able to bring them back into the banking industry. And that's why we're saying at this time, we would like to return back to that. So what I'm saying is, what we're saying today is not new. But by March 2020, we're saying that now we're only returning back to the 6 states where currently withdrawal charges are holding. There are 6 states. It's not all over the country. But the entire cashless process will have to permeate the entire Nigeria by March 2020. Okay? So this policy is in no way designed to disenfranchise hardworking Nigerian businesses, as some of the media analysts have been saying, many of whom have indeed embraced electronic payment channels and online digital marketplaces. Today, permit me to say that small and medium enterprises and other businesses have various options and channels available to them for collecting legitimate payments for goods and services like bank transfers, using the POS, using the mobile POSs or mobile cash, mobile money, the USSD codes, and the QR codes. Indeed, it is in the public interest to promote an efficient payment system via the cashless policy, which helps to reduce the punitive cost of cash processing, often passed on to bank customers by deposit money banks. Cashless policy also improves transparency in financial dealings and reduction in crime, such as advance fee fraud, graft, ransom payments, and extortions. It is in line with the CBN's quest to adopt international best practices and international conventions, especially in view of the recent reputational damage with some Nigerians perpetrating advance fee fraud, that we think that Nigeria must proceed in the direction of cashless economy.
Now, joining us to give more light on the new cashless policy introduced by the Central Bank of Nigeria, we have Ibrahim Shellen, an economist. Welcome to the program. We also have the National President of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Dr. Uche Olowu. Thank you for joining us on Business Express today.
It's my pleasure.
Now, let me start with you, coming from the background of a banker's environment. What is cashless policy?
Well, the cashless policy is a policy designed to minimize the quantum of cash that we carry for our transactional or precautionary measures, like is obtainable in other climes. I find in other climes that even if you carry, I just came back from London, £50 note, people look at you, wow, why are you carrying that kind of level? It's ditto for in the States, $100 bill. Because in that site, what you find is that every transaction moves through the financial system. And so flows are captured and all that. So that's, it doesn't mean that you don't have cash at all, but cash should be minimized. Use of cash should, be reduced to a great extent.
Okay. Ibrahim, I'm going to come to you now. In relation to the cashless policy, where do you see the status of electronic banking?
Well, electronic banking has come a long way, certainly, but I think there's a lot more work to be done. One of the reasons why people are still using cash is because they're not, as trusting in our electronic banking services at the moment. So there's still a long way to go. You'd think the cashless policy would drive that, but I would have liked to have seen the e-banking services be improved before these measures.
But let me throw in this. Would you say ignorance of technology by some citizens are the reason for the cashless policy?
Not strictly. Some of the issues actually are to do with failed transactions and the timeline it takes to reverse transactions. There's so many stories of people that have been stranded because of, ATM transactions that have gone bad, POS transactions that have gone bad. And, the banking system needs to do much better in tackling some of these issues to build a trust in the e-solutions.
Okay. Mr. Olowu, let me come to you now. Some Nigerians consider handling charges as punitive and insensitive in the light of the state of the economy. But before you answer that question, let's take a look at this. We have CBN versus Mala Adamu. Adamu is a trader in Kano, Nigeria, with 1 million naira capital. Now, he buys goods with all his capital and sells to small retailers, most of whom, according to this, are illiterates and don't understand internet or mobile banking. His business is heavily dependent on turnover 8 times in a month. Now, in his account, there is a withdrawal and lodgement of his capital, again, 8 times, which attracts about 5% charge on 500,000, as you can see. Now, with 5% equaling 2% lodgement charge, then the 3% and withdrawal, we have 8 times. This is like a rough calculation of what all these balls do. 8 times in a month, he is charged 5%, which is 25,000 times 8, 200,000 naira. Now you look at that 200,000 naira of Adamu's capital eroded monthly. This has been trending on social media. Is this a reflection of what cashless policy is?
It is not. You see the point clearly. Let me even help to react to what Adamu just said in respect to the quantum of transaction. If you listen to the governor, based on what you see, the quantum has increased. Really, there is a strategic response by the incumbent banks to make sure that this cashless policy work. It is to the best interest of everybody that this work. Clearly, that's, so when people, now when you're introducing these things, all you need to do is that Nigeria, typically they want the status quo. But that cannot take us anywhere. We need to readdress the things that can push these frontiers of this economy, right. What we would do is that the missing link is awareness, purely awareness. I want to reflect back when GSM was to be introduced. And people said, in our rural areas, how come, how will we, how can they manage this? But today, everybody carries their telephone, mobile phone. The banking model has been disrupted. Brick and mortar has gone. So what you have, your bank today is the mobile phone. We must follow the trend in the world. That's so clearly, and that is what is happening today. Even the social investment scheme that the government adopted was made through the mobile phones. Those illiterates, they receive their money? Yes. Can they transfer? Can they buy credit and all that? So now what do we do? The missing link, actually, let me tell you, that calculation does not work. The missing link actually is awareness, creating that level of awareness for people too. There's nothing the human being cannot conceive and execute once you know. Let me clearly state here that those charges, it's just a model to change behavior. I read organizational behavior. If you want to change a behavior, you need to put up something that is a little bit punitive, so that will not make people. So, like Adamu that you have pointed out now, what Adamu is that, and
his illiterate friends who don't know mobile phones.
So it doesn't take any illiterate friends. It doesn't take any more than an hour that the illiterate friend will be educated on what to punch to get his. I buy suya with the Malam brings a POS. So those arguments does not hold. It does not hold. The suya man is not literate, but all you need to do is to let him know and educate him what he's supposed to do.
So in simple terms, to make it less worrisome or concerning as the average Nigerian is right now.
Yes.
Simply put, what is it?
Let's look. Steve Covey will say, begin with the end in mind. What is the end goal of this philosophy? The thing is that we need to solve the bigger problem. Right away, you remember the banking system introduced this shared agency network expansion facility, which is designed for financial inclusion. When we're talking about the financial inclusion, the federal government needed, the banks contributed so much money to buy telephones to put in the hands of people so that we can seamlessly. You cannot remain. You see, if you look at, knowledge, avoid knowledge, you want to do the life of ignorance, you will, It's just like someone said, if you do not accept reality, reality is going to deal with you. The trend has moved on in terms of digital technology. The space is moving. Nigeria cannot be left behind in terms of using technology. And more so, let's look at the overall picture. Anti-money laundering is a global phenomenon. So that will help us to check those fraud, corruption, and look at the bigger picture. And I'm sure that's why, but the banking system will put in place system to check failures. That's why the Chartered Institute of Bankers will have self-mechanism, our ethics and compliance mechanism is there to check unethical moral conduct. The CBN has consumer complaint. So the issue there clearly for me is that we should just allow the policy for what it is. We're going to reap the benefit later.
Okay, Ibrahim Sheleng, allow the policy for what it is. Do you agree?
You see, I don't think necessarily the policy is bad. However, the two things to consider: timing. And also, if we're trying to encourage e-banking, why not remove some of the charges? You pay stamp duties, you pay account maintenance fees. These are ridiculous. If we're trying to encourage e-banking and e-solutions, why don't we remove some of these charges? So rather than being punitive, why don't we encourage people to use these channels? So I think these are some of the issues we've seen on the fiscal side. VAT is increasing, so already there's this perhaps this feeling that the government is trying to be punitive against the people. Now you introduce these charges. However, it does only affect potentially 5% of the banking population. But as you've shown here clearly, a man like Mr. Adamu there with his 1 million naira will eventually be affected. So there's this squeeze, should I say, on the masses, so to speak, and we have to also factor that in. So rather than being punitive, perhaps look at measures to encourage people to use e-banking solutions.
Let me just say something here. Let me call quickly, because if you want to change behavior, you remember years back the cashless policy was introduced to give people to migrate to the electronic system, but you never, for how long? When people are complaining, I want us to differentiate between the real charges, cash management services, and these punitive charges, because this punitive charge means that once Adamu knows that 250,000 based on his is going to happen, he will automatically migrate to that system. That is the whole idea. Nobody is interested in beginning to take your... No, it's not possible. I stand to say that we do not stand for that.
Okay, Mala Adamu is concerned about excess charges. He thinks it's a bit excessive. Is it excessive?
Excessive?
We have the recently introduced cash handling charges.
Yes.
It's all part of additional charges.
No, cash handling, that's what I'm saying. That if you do not put some punitive measures, you cannot get people comply. A good example is that you drive in the street of London. Now what happened is that because people know that if they cross the line, that the camera will pick them up. What do they? It restrains them.
Yes.
So that is what is designed. It is not that we are interested in putting up traffic light to stop the analogy of free flow of traffic. No, the whole idea is that you need to make the people understand that look, this is a global phenomenon where it is agreed that generally, cash is a form of corruption. Corrupt activities are passed through underhand G's and all that. What they call it. Pass through the cash system. So we need to check that. We can't remain that way. Otherwise, you cannot even get investment flowing into this country.
Talking about investment, in all of this, I'm seeing electronic. The word electronic keeps coming up. So some of these securities, financial security that you're sort of highlighting,
yes,
are they the advantages?
Yeah, fine. In terms of, people are talking about the cyber security. I just came back from a conference, World Conference of Banking in London. On the front burner is cyber fraud and cyber security. What are we doing? What the global phenomenon? I can tell you some of them cannot be divulged here. What the national security, Interpol and all that are doing to check that. And coming down here, banks are also investing massively in the security system, because we know that that is a major, everything that has upside has some downside, and this downside is really, really challenging, and that is why a lot of investment is being pumped into that place, because we know that this, whether we like it or not, the trend has moved on in terms of disruption. We cannot ignore to move with the trend of disruptions that have happened in that industry. And we're also aware that, yes, there have been security issues and all that. It's really, we acknowledge that, and that has to be taken seriously, and that is what is being done.
Okay. Now, Ibrahim Shaleng, earlier on you were talking about the timeliness and the purpose of this cashless policy, involvement of technology, and how the common man on the streets understands what this is all about. Sure. Let me hear your thoughts on this.
Well, in terms
bearing in mind some of the points he has made.
Sure. I keep saying, I mean, I'm all for e-banking and cashless societies. However, as I said, you look at the timing, right? I think on sometime this week, we're supposed to be evaluated by the, I think, GIABA or something. So you can see why this policy has been fast-tracked. Okay. Although the full implementation is going to be March 2020. Yeah. But this is one of the reasons why this thing has been fast-tracked. If we don't pass this evaluation, it could actually have, dire consequences on a lot of things in the banking sector, really. So the timing is a bit off. And as I mentioned, on the fiscal side, we've had, supposed VAT increase next year, and there's already this feeling that the government just keeps squeezing and squeezing in a society that's already depressed. Let's not forget there's potentially going to be cost push inflation that will arise from some of these increases.
All right. It's been a pleasure having you both on the program. We have been talking to Ibrahim Sheleng. He is an economist, and we have also been talking to the National President of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Dr. Uche Olohu. Thank you so much for this insightful discussion. It was a pleasure. And I hope the likes of Adamu don't have much to worry about.
Adamu has to change his behavior. Yes. That's it.
Now, the bears returned to the capital market last week, eroding previous week's gains. Bossede Abel is our guide.
Gains recorded in the previous week at the Nigerian Stock Exchange were short-lived as the bears returned in the week ended 20th September amid trending uproar of investors against deposit charges imposed by the Central Bank of Nigeria. The NSE All-Share Index and Market Capitalization both depreciated by 0.29% to close the week at 27,698.69 and 13.4 trillion naira. A total turnover of 1.2 billion shares worth 18.7 billion naira were traded by investors in 19,482 deals. All other indices finished higher, with the exception of the NSE All-Share, NSE Mainboard, and NSE ASM indices, which depreciated by 0.29%, 0.86%, and 0.6%. The financial services industry led the activity chart with 945.9 million shares valued at 9.7 billion naira, traded in 11,046 deals. The consumer goods industry followed with 82.9 million shares worth 5.5 billion naira in 2,862 deals. The third place was occupied by the conglomerate industry with a turnover of 80.8 million shares worth 267.1 million naira in 1,163 deals. The top three equities were FBN Holdings PLC, Guarantee Trust Bank PLC, and Access Bank PLC. They jointly accounted for 482.3 million shares worth 6.5 billion naira in 4,724 deals. A total of 96 units of exchange-traded products, ETPs, valued at 215,654 naira 78 kobo, were traded in the course of the week in 6 deals. Also, 17,761 units of federal government bonds, valued at 20.3 million naira, were traded during the week in 5 deals. 38 equities appreciated in price during the week, 29 equities depreciated in price, while 99 equities remained unchanged.
Thank you, Abosede. Today, the all-share index depreciated by 0.15% to close at 27,657.27 basis point. Volume of trade 109.5 million, valued at 888.1 million in 3,382 deals. Market capitalization 13.4 trillion naira. Top trades were FBN Holding PLC, Transco, and Access Bank. The stock market report brings us to the end of this edition of Business Express. You can access all previous episodes on YouTube, and you can also communicate with us on Twitter, and the handle is at NTA News Now. Don't forget the hashtag BizX. We value your feedback. Keep them coming. Join us again on Wednesday for another package. I am Amina Noujaim. Thank you for watching.